As you all know, what I usually do is I somebody say I advise young people. I used to think I advise young people, or I used to advise young people until I realized that advisors are not so good. I then started not to advise. I started to have a conversation and say, okay, so let's have a conversation, and what I have is the questions, and if you don't have answers, is okay, but I have questions, and we will be able to explore out both our questions and both our answers. What makes the difference is if we're gonna find something, if we use the combinations of the two, my questions, my answers, your questions, your answers. If we can figure out something along the way using that, then at least I can have trust to that. We can call it an advice. I can call it an advice, but usually advices are not like that. Advices are about somebody that think they know something and they telling you what you should do based on what they know, and it's called advice, or based on how they analyze or how they experienced. Okay, or based on what they think is good for you, whatever the case may be, depending on what type of advice it is. Could be business advice, could be psychological advice, could be just an instinctive personal advice, or whatever. I just wanted to talk about a whole advice situation because somebody said I advise young people about how to how to live their lives or advise them how to face some of the challenges. Well, if you want me to advise you, to be like a maybe personal close situation, but generally, I think I want to explore questions, and I want to explore your questions too, and I want to explore my answers and your answers too, and see if we can figure something somewhere along the way. All right. So now my discussion is this: that I would like to see young people having more conversation around how do they make income, how do they make income, because there's so much of the culture of not speaking about how we make income. It's not like it has ever been there. Maybe in the early 18th century, early 19th century, it late 18th century and early 19th century, maybe it happened that time. Okay, because it used to be the conversation where people are supposed to educate each other about it. Okay, so now we're kind of like in a culture or where we find ourselves in a situation where it's all about having the money. It's not about the process of the money. It's all about I'm having the money and you're not having the money. Okay, and I'm living this life because I've got this money and you don't have it. And we only celebrate and like and publish and embrace the image of the having the money than the process of it. And I'm saying the process of it is the helpful thing to explore, because the helpful thing, why is it helpful, is because the in necessity for it, that is so that everybody can know and adapt and learn on how to create income. And if that's not the point of making everybody understand and know how to make income, then what is the point? If that's not the point, then what's the point? And if there's any other point I would like to know about that point, I would like to know about that point. Maybe we can have a discussion around it as well. Now, I find it most of the time more, because somebody would say no, it's been there. When you go to the university, to the school, they will teach you some things, and then you will probably gonna figure out the income through by doing that thing that they taught you at the university. They give you a degree for it. Okay, and that seems to be the way in which income has almost like been engineered or figured out. At least the 19th century, late 18th century people, they figured out that. They said, oh, no, let's do it this way. This is how we can. In fact, 19th century guys, those are the guys. Now we still have so much 19th century mindset in our heads and in operation because it was like a very intense moment. But we need to move on. We need to move on from 19th century, yeah. Because if we don't move on and we are delaying those that are supposed to move on from us too, okay? Yeah. So the introduction of how labor is supposed to be and how people are supposed to work and what is it that we refer to as work as contribution to the marketplace for both two reasons, civilization and recently also for making a living. I'm saying if we do not offer our education packages, system, service, from the basic education, higher education, structural education, university education, if we do not offer that education for the purpose of people to survive, then we will do something that is valuable. We'll do something that matters. Yes, we'll do something that matters, and what we do will not be so very much entangled with the outcomes of people's survival. Because the university and the education is not created for survival. It's created for exploration, further exploration of things. Now, people, they go to the university in order to get a degree, diploma, qualification certificates, PhD, masters, for survival, I'm saying, and that's a wrong way of it. And that's why we have got problems when people, they say, we do not have jobs. You do not have jobs because you're applying a wrong philosophy to this situation. You're applying different mechanisms that cannot link together. So you're almost like going to be, we say, delusional because you have got wishes of the outcomes, but the input is not the right input that is at least studied enough to see how it links with the outcomes. How sure are you about the outcomes and the input to it? Or you just have pieces of inputs that they sound positive or nice, or you just apply something because you think you have a good faith of doing it, instead of understanding or at least finding out, other than having the good faith to do it, but what is the actual input that goes in it? And what is the link and relationship of the output and different type of outputs that go in there, which later on brings, on the other side, brings the output in different levels of outputs, but general output just like general input, and which is a simple situation of creating a marketplace where there's a trading of services and products. And if that makes the economy work, then why is that difficult? Because that's not supposed to be difficult. It's not supposed to be difficult. I mean, I'm saying if that's what we need to do, not if that's not what we need to do. It's difference. The income is not a luxury. Income is not supposed to be luxury. It's not supposed to be only some for some and not for some. If we are to be fair about the nature of how life is, the true nature of life, therefore we will understand that income is supposed to be almost like a human right. It's supposed to be a human right, because isn't it income has something to do with people eating food? It has something to do with people eating food, having shelter, surviving, right? Now, if eating food and surviving, having shelter is a human right, and those things come from income, then why would we then not let the income conversation be more quality conversation than the conversation of the actual output of the things that which income have buy? I want to ask you a simple question. In fact, I had three questions I want to ask you, and so I had three questions I want to ask the young people and the youth of the world, but particularly African youth and particularly South African youth. All right. So now I want to ask you this question. I'm gonna go back to what I was talking about, but I want you to maybe write down these questions. If you have something to write down, or just note them on your phone. First question: what would you desire this country to be? What would you desire of it? What would you like to see this country be like? You know, and be honest about it. And don't do not say something like to be a democratic, inclusive, um, fair for everyone. All those things that the politicians they do, okay? Or all the things that uh, there are people that are not, they don't like to be honest about what they say, do, okay? It happens. Okay, so what do you desire it to be? What are you going to do to make it sure that those desires that happen? What is your contribution to it? Question number 2. Question number 3 is question number 3 is currently who is leading you? Who are your leaders? Who are the people that you look up to and say, okay, so this is our leadership, this is somebody that we can trust in terms of handling this process, in terms of it being facilitated at at a certain level where I guess a certain role of leadership has got to be, or the very role of leadership has got to be, because we cannot do everything, all of us. There must be somebody doing something, there must be somebody doing something else elsewhere, and there's somebody else doing something elsewhere. Okay, so now my question is this: now who's leading you? I want to ask this question in a general sense, not in a sense of politics, okay, but in a sense of a societal sense, okay, in a societal perspective. Okay, you can put all the politics in it, you can put all the religion in it, you can put all professional leaders, business leaders, whatever the case may be, type of leaders. I don't know how you understand leadership to be, because leadership is not only the guys that wear the ties, mostly red ties. And when you look at a guy with a red tie and a black suit, you're like, yeah, that looks like leadership. Can you see that? That looks like leader. Yeah, that's what happens. Not really. There's more to it, or there's less to it. Who's your leaders? What are you gonna contribute to be able to see this becoming something that you'd want to see in terms of your country where you are, particularly if you find yourself to be in South Africa? Because I'm from South Africa, so I think it's fair to be South African. Okay, so I really ask this to South African youth, young people. I'm saying, so you look at this thing as they happen, and if you're not going to be asking yourself questions on how you get to do this, how to respond to this, you're going to have some trouble. I think right now we've got more youth that either do not seem to be caring about what's going to be of their country, or that do not know that they must care about what is gonna be of their country, or completely doomed by those that have ushered them, who could not make them have an idea of that they need to take care of certain things in order to see of their nation becoming of something. Among those reasons, because usually we cannot exonerate the previous generation and the one before that, so usually we cannot go further. We just go to the next door the previous one, the two previous ones, we go to those. And it's fair to do that. It's fair to do that because what does it do? It creates a sense of responsibility. If you have got that awareness that you are going to be having to be responsible for what becomes, then it gives you that responsibility automatically to be able to then handle things in a way that which they will still be continuing to be handled well further by the next person. Okay, have a handover, a good handover. So I'm asking the young people, I'm saying these 3 questions, okay? Write them down, think about them, and have some way in which you can maybe put some action to it. This is important because, well, if you ask yourself, if you're not you, who then? Because it's only you that we are trusting. That it's only you we're trusting that has got good interest. Has got good interest. There's something that once a political leader of a political party once said. You see, the red political party. He say, Julius, he say, there's difference between that's something I kept thinking about, because you say there's difference between the people that are not natives here, or they don't feel to be natives of South Africa. Okay, I mean South Africa is a multiracial country whatsoever, but also it's got native people, and it's got those that are not so native. In terms of native is natural, isn't it? Native is natural. Native it doesn't mean citizenship, isn't it? It means there's no any other home other than that. That's the only home you have. So there are people that have got other homes, and that's fair to reflect it from that perspective. And so psychologically and naturally, you cannot have equal interest on a something if you're not having equal sense of belonging to it.